What's good, everybody? Welcome to Origin Story, the podcast that interviews creators about where they came from to understand how they got here. My name is Phillip Russell, and I am with my co-host,
Ben Thorp.
And Ben, we are back again with a favorite from season one, game developer and artist Neil Jones, who is the creator of Aerial Knight's Never Yield, and we kind of just talked to him on this episode about making a huge update called The Update for the game that kind of addressed a lot of the different criticisms and, suggestions that people had about the initial release. And we just wanted to kind of pick his brain a bit about what it was like kind of working on this update and also kind of engaging with fans and fan feedback in a big way. So really cool conversation.
Yeah, Phil, should we keep having, season one guests back on the show? This felt nice,
It's like we're getting more friends, Ben.
That's exactly how this felt. It was like that friend that you got to catch up with, that you haven't talked to in a while, and then you peek back into your life, and you're like, wow, things are going surprisingly well.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this felt like fun. It's a fun conversation. We talk about the game. We talk about everything from why Piccolo is a black man to hot takes around Cyberpunk being an actually good game. And then also just, Neil talks a bit about what it's like with the industry currently as we're seeing all these different kind of mergers and acquisitions between, the big guys like Sony and Microsoft and how that feels, especially as an indie developer.
Yeah, I feel like Neil is so good at kind of breaking down his perspective on all of this stuff as an indie dev. And last time he kind of talked about how hard it is to kind of stay on the top of the charts and to stay kind of in the public view. And again, I think he just has interesting perspectives on like this industry that is kind of eating itself right now, it feels like. And he described a lot of these big mergers, I think, as like Game of Thrones like. And so, he's happy to watch it happen until, maybe it'll start hurting him down the line. He doesn't know.
For sure. So, yeah, that's kind of our conversation ahead in this episode. Before we jump in, I just wanted to, thank everybody who's been checking out our kind of new side project called Study Hall. Seems like it's been getting some good reception, and, it's definitely in this phase of fluidity where we're figuring out exactly what the format's going to be. So I think I can speak for both of us when I say, like, hit us up with any kind of feedback you have in terms of what would make the show like the best kind of version it could be. And we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, even if it is like, don't let Ben just talk for 25, 30 minutes again. I respect and understand that. So like, do send that advice in.
Exactly. And then as always, if you enjoy the show, definitely rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, even if you don't end up leaving a written review. And the same goes for Spotify and wherever else you're listening. So with that, how about we jump right into the show? Yeah, I think maybe just to start us off, like, Neil, welcome back to the show. We're glad to have you back on Origin Story, and maybe just to get us started, we'd love to just hear, like, how you been? What's new? How's life? What have you been up to?
No, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. Been really good. Just tired working on the game. Just trying to keep up with everything, trying to make sure I have time to play games as well.
For sure. No, I mean, I think, so we brought you back on because, Never Yield, has it been about a year or a little bit less than a year since it came out? And you have this big update coming out called The Update. We'd love to, spend some time talking about, how that whole process came to be, why you're making this update, and, what can we expect on this update?
Yeah, so short, like it's been less than a year. It's been about 8 months or so. And this is pretty much going to be the last update. So instead of doing a lot of small, tiny like updates, I just wanted to do it all at once. Push it out and just kind of be done with it. And I spent a lot of time just like reading comments and watching people play. I'm big on watching just Twitch people stream the game, and I'll sit there and comment and give them pointers and stuff like that while they're playing. Um, and there was definitely some feedback. It was a lot of feedback, about multiple things, and things that I wanted to add to the game that I didn't get to, and specifically the story. I always had trouble with that ending. I didn't think it was like clear enough. I wanted people to kind of like come to their own conclusions, but I could admit that I'm not an animator, and like it kind of missed the mark a little bit from what I was aiming for. So I just want to always go back and take another like shot at making that just more clear and let's put a little bit more time into it, because launching a game the first time around is just like a lot of stuff I had to deal with that I wasn't expecting. So yeah, I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to take all the reviews and take all the feedback and kind of just do this one clean giant update, and people are like excited about it, and it's getting some promotion, and from what I've seen early, people really like what I've done with it.
Yeah, I mean, can you maybe talk about that? Seems like a really great relationship to have with like fans of the game, where it's like you're watching them play and you're like, okay, cool. Like maybe here's something that I can put into the game. I mean, what was that? What was that like?
Yeah, so I don't really like people telling me what to do. I don't know if I
Totally.
don't know if people
No,
notice that, but it just bugs me. So when the game first came out, people were like, "Oh, it needs an endless mode. Oh, it needs leaderboards," and I was like, "There's a reason I didn't do those things." But with some time, I kind of can admit that hey, this is their game too. If they want these things, I should consider it. So I did a version of those things, kind of meet in the middle of. So we put in leaderboards in the game, but it's not directly, here's your name, here's your score type of leaderboard. It's more of a like pools, like there's tiers to it. So in your time, you fall into that certain tier, because I do want it to be fun. I don't want people sitting there stressing the whole time about a number or a specific time.
do you feel comfortable talking about the story? I don't know
Depends on when it's coming out.
if you're worried. Okay, okay. I don't know if you're worried about like spoilers or something.
No, when are you planning on dropping this?
It'll be after the update's already out for sure.
Okay, yeah, if it's after the update's out, that's fine. Yeah, so the point of the story was always that there are two characters, and they're pretty much twins, twin brothers, but they're fighting. It's a reference to my struggle. One is supposed to be Neil, and one is supposed to be Ariel Knight, and it's supposed to just be my struggle of me trying to achieve something and me holding myself back from that thing. And at the end of the game, it's like one of those things, like winning and taking over, type of deal. And it wasn't very clear. People thought that there was just one character until they got to the end of the game. But there's a lot of stuff in the game, especially with the lyrics at the end with the last level. It kind of breaks a lot down. And then there's still like a lot of hidden stuff that I put in the game to allude to other things going on. But the core of it is just my struggle between this dream fantasy version of myself, and that I want to be this great thing, but also reality always pulling you back. You have to keep getting back up, and you have to never yield type of thing.
I can totally see why
maybe people miss that. But I remember feeling that from playing it the first time, especially because that there's that end level where you play both characters racing against one another, and it keeps kind of swapping the perspective, so you're kind of racing against each other, which is such a it was such a great level, and I think does a really good job of expressing that, that like you're literally as a player facing off against yourself in some ways.
Yeah, and there's not really any, you can't really lose based off of that kind of story. That's why I never stressed how many deaths you have or anything like that. Never really mattered. It was just like finishing. That's all that really mattered. If you finish the game, then you won.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think one of the things from our initial interview that I still think about today, even after all the interviews we did since then, is just your point about whether it's game press or just gamers in general, coming to a game or a piece of creative work and like admitting when you don't know and not trying to like give feedback or ideas to the creator in this way of like I know everything. And having that humbling perspective. And I think it's really interesting when you think about updating a game to this extent. And I'm curious, for you, I'm sure you learned a lot just doing the update, but do you think there's anything, now that you've completed the update and it's coming out that you learned either about the game or about yourself, or like what you're taking away from kind of doing this big update to this project?
Yes, it's fine to, get more help. When I first wrote out the notes of like people's feedback and the reviews, a lot of the reviews are really nice, but also, the scores, like the score got bumped down from like nitpicks almost. I felt like things that, wasn't worth knocking down the score for. So but I, that's how people, like some people feel, and that's totally justifiable. So I just kind of kept notes on all of those things. So when I went to make this giant list of things I want to fix, I wanted to kind of address all of the reviews so that I can kind of, force their hand to say, hey, you made all of these comments about the game. Now I address all of them. So you should address your review because it's no longer accurate. But that's up to them. They don't have to, but they do it for the bigger games. So I kind of wanted to see, how far I could push it. And what is, a perfect game to some people, because I feel that, no matter what, my game is not going to like get tens and like 5 out of 5s or anything like that. But if you say, this and that is what's holding this game back from being a 10. So if I fix those things, then, what's the next step? I think it's a good conversation to have between like developers and reviewers or anybody critiquing games, is that, if you say these are the critiques and the critiques are addressed, then what's the next step?
Hmm.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't know. There's something that's come into my head just from that is, it's a hard balance for reviewing games, especially when you're thinking about like AAA or AA or really, really indie developed games like yourself. Do you think that maybe there should not different standards, but just I could imagine like for something like Never Yield, which is a game that you largely developed yourself, it's almost unfair for like a reviewer to hold it to the same standard as like a game from Ubisoft that has 300 people that developed it. And thinking about that in the context of critique, I wonder if there's like something there in terms of how we approach these kinds of games that should change.
Yeah, I think it's all just personal like feelings, and like I don't think anybody really has an issue with someone saying, hey, it's just not for me, type of thing. I've never like hit any or knocked anybody for not liking my game, because there's plenty of games out that just aren't for me. It's the standards. Like if you're gonna review a game and like be the life or death of a game, and you're doing this for a lot of games, then we need to understand, what you believe to make a good game and what you believe to make a bad game, so that it's consistent across the board. A lot of times, I think scores get inflated because of hype and a lot of outside
Mm.
factors that don't really have anything to do with the game. Because I've played games that like I was told was bad games that, hey, you should not waste your time. And I think Mafia 3 was the thing that woke me up to it the most. I avoided Mafia 3 even though I love black characters and those type of environments. But I played that game. I think it was on PlayStation Plus or something like that, and I was like, this game was amazing. I don't understand like why I didn't like kind of gravitate towards this, but then I remembered I watched a lot of reviews and things like that, that kind of kept me away from it. And that's not to knock reviewers or anything like that. I don't want people to take it that way. It's just the reviews were part of my reasoning for wanting to do this update and help me put together my list of things I want to fix.
Yeah, you've also, I feel like, talked about how quickly, especially when you're talking about indie games, they kind of disappear from visibility. It's like that. There's just this mill, and there's so many different
Yeah.
options, and yours can come out, get some hype, and then disappear down the list like pretty quickly. I wonder if you can maybe talk about like how it's been for your game. 8 months later, has it been able to kind of stay on the top a little bit? I did notice that Xbox is making, I think, Never Yields its games with gold for
Yeah.
February. I mean, how does stuff like that help?
Yeah, no, I think my game has been one of the ones that have got a lot of press because it never really like achieved what it could have as far as just blowing up in the public with the music and the art style and the gameplay, and it's really accessible type of game. So I just got the feedback that, hey, more people should have kind of noticed the game. I don't think any developer is owed success. Just because you make a good game doesn't mean that game should be successful, because there's a lot of things that go into it. But some things just come out at bad times and just don't work out and whatnot. My game just kind of consistent because people like discover it, and then once they discover it, they talk about it in the music and all these things. I have a lot of stuff going on, and it kept driving the game. And there was always this talk about me doing this update because it wasn't a secret. I was in the Discord asking people all the time, like, what is like are things that you would like to see if I were to do an update? Um, Pretty much doing everything but confirming it. I think there was always kind of that space, and the knowledge that this was coming sooner or later.
I mean, I think I assume that this is probably going to be a positive answer, but yeah, just again speaking to that, like the games with gold, and expanding that to like maybe Game Pass or PS Plus or I forget, Nintendo Switch Online. I guess they don't really do it in the same way, but these kind of services where they're giving away the free games for your subscription. I'm curious, like you talked a bit about this in our initial conversation, but how do you think this is an important part for indie games to find success, is like having these ways of getting these big tentpole moments?
Yeah, I think it gets a lot of attention. So me, I just want people to play the game. Like I don't really worry too much about how much money the game's going to make or anything like that. As because I had a publisher and I had like a lot of other things kind of set up to help out with that, be it the vinyl and all these extra things. It did play a factor early on to just kind of figure out what I was going to do, if I was going to have enough to kind of make the next game. But I think it's a net positive right now because you see a lot of gamers just saying, I don't want to buy anything. I just want to sign up for this subscription service and get things to play, which I totally understand. Younger me would have loved like any of these services to kind of have something new to play every month, or a bunch of handful of games to like keep me entertained. So I think it's just more of a wait and see thing. I think it's working right now, but depending on the twists and turns, it could go bad. But hopefully, I'm just, kind of hoping for the best. I'm very grateful to be a part of Games with Gold, and any other things along the line that my game kind of ends up on. But me, I just like watching people play the game, and I just want to make something that people really enjoy, and whatever gets that to more people, I'm cool with.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to ask your
Mhm.
perspective on, obviously we're in the midst of watching Sony and Microsoft pick up a bunch of these studios. And I know that we've talked before about like the space of like indies and indie creators and like how does that landscape look to you now? And like how are you feeling about as you're watching these kind of big deals get made? What does that mean for someone like you?
It's really weird. I don't I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen. That's why everybody's
Yeah.
so kind of worried about it. Because we always known that Sony and Xbox has billions of dollars and can do whatever they want. And the competition between like studios, AAA studios, has always been like really crazy, especially during November and such. Because I avoid putting any kind of content out in November, October, or December, just because the Call of Duties and the Triple A's, they own those spaces. So we indies found our little windows, but we're gonna see what happens. Maybe this might be a good thing so that the Triple A's kind of spread out their releases a little bit more and don't aren't more of these random drops that kind of throw people's marketing plans all out of whack. Like me, my update is coming out in the middle of February, in between like four huge AAA games. I'm hoping I don't get buried, and I don't get hit with like a cyberpunk trailer the same day as the drop of my game. But it's real random these days. There's nothing we can really do about it either.
No, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I think Ben and I have just been talking a lot about it's crazy, like every day with the Sony and Bungie thing, and then obviously Microsoft with Bethesda, and then Blizzard. It's just like it just seems like impossible.
Well, it's stressful, but it's fun. Like I woke up and saw the Activision thing, and I was like, "This is crazy." I felt like it was Game of Thrones or something. Like I don't know. I weirdly enjoy it, but it also like worries me because you're gonna run out of studios eventually.
That's hilarious. I think we should definitely highlight the fact that just recently, Never Yield had won an award from the Spawnies for music, and I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about that experience. And obviously, I think Khalif Adams has done a lot for Black creators in the space, and kind of watching the award show is really dope to just to see like two Black hosts in that kind of award setting. I mean, that's nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah, it's weird talking about streamers. I think streamers and developers like are so far apart when it comes to like just this space in general, but we're in the same space. But we have completely different struggles, but also the same struggles. So I'm super proud of Khalif and Spawn on Me and everybody involved with that. It's just for my own mental health, there's so much to worry about on the dev side that I kind of just compartmentalize things to say, hey, I'm gonna worry about the dev stuff. Khalif and all the streamers got their streamer stuff, and I'm gonna support them in any way I can. But I got all these devs who can't even get a deal from a publisher that I'm trying to kind of help out and give advice to, and there's just like so much work on that end to do.
Are people I guess coming to you for advice and stuff because you've obviously had some success in like getting eyeballs on your game, and so do people come to you and say, "Hey, like what did this take, and like how do I get there?"
Yeah, I get we have a Discord for a lot of the Black game developers, and people, will hit me up on Twitter and email me, and hey, even if you're listening to this and you need somebody's opinion, you can always hit me up. If I got time, I'm always down to like talk and help. But there is a lot of randomness that goes into it, and. Sometimes you just gotta be at the right place at the right time. Like, and I feel like that's what happened to me. With my game coming out that year, that people really wanted to focus on Black creators. And then landing a publisher at a really good time in which the publisher was looking for somebody, and the art style of my game, and everything kind of just worked out. But that really doesn't happen for a lot of people. And I can't tell anybody like follow these exact steps and then this will happen for you. I don't think anybody could say that. But I can help out with marketing and style, and saying, hey, this is a good look, this isn't a good look, type of thing. Because I just really want everybody to be successful. I think the more create different type of creators we have, like the better the space is going to be, the more comfortable it's going to be for everybody, not even just developers. Like, I think that's like streamers and what have you. We just need like just more people that's different in these spaces.
Yeah, I'm curious. Something that we didn't ask, I don't think, on the first conversation, that just hearing you say this is making me think about is, as a writer, I hear a lot of stories about people who maybe are getting like their first book published, and the differences in experience in terms of like going through a publisher and going through an editor, and especially as a person of color, like some experiences that may be negative, and not having any kind of anybody to lean on or get perspective on in that experience. I'm curious for you with publishing Never Yield. What was that experience like going and getting a publisher for the game, and like in those kinds of scenarios, since I don't really know anything about it, is it like, does the publisher give input in terms of the game, and like, do you have to change things based off of the publisher? Like, what's that whole experience like for you, at least with Never Yield?
Yeah, yeah, it's weird. It's a lot like starting a new job, a job that you really really like, and then your boss like saying, hey, you should do this differently, and you really want to be like, chill, this is my job, I got this. But also you're like, well, it's my boss, but it's a little bit different. It's not like a boss work situation. Everybody has the best intentions. So the publisher is not going to come to you and say, hey, let's just do this random thing just because that's how I feel today. They want to make money. And I think if everybody goes into the whole publisher relationship knowing that the publisher wants to make money, that's their goal. They want you to succeed because they get a cut. And that's all publishers. I don't care where you go. I don't care how nice they are to you or whatnot. That's the end of the day. That's what they're looking for. And if you kind of just keep that in mind when you kind of do the whole thing, and you stick to, know what you're willing to like budge on, and know what you're willing to not let go. Like, there was never going to be a scenario where, my main character wasn't going to be Black. Like, I don't care who, what, or whatever needed to happen. And if somebody asked me, hey, can you just change the color? No, that was never going to happen. But they say, hey, can you add leaderboards into it? That can be more of a conversation.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I just, from my personal experience, there was a couple years ago now, I was working on this essay that was about it was basically about how like me and my Black friend growing up used to view Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z as like a Black dude. And yeah, and like kind of working through like why Black people have such a close connection to Piccolo as a character. And I was going through the whole editing process at this journal to get it published, and my editor was a white guy, and I think you're bringing up a really important thing that creators, especially new creators, have to think about, is like, what are you willing to concede on, and what are you willing to you can't concede on. And for me, it was like he was trying to tell me, like, essentially he was basically trying to edit what my Black experience was like, as if he would know. And I had to walk away from that experience, more or less. But I think it's a really really valuable insight for new creators to be like, hey, if this isn't your vision, to be like, you need to walk away, it's not worth it.
There's like I saw this essay or this video essay a long time ago about just why Black people gravitate to Dragon Ball Z so much, especially Black men. And it's about I forget the details, but basically the thesis was that Goku was like this powerful being from this world far away. And he had this potential inside of him to do crazy great things, but in public around white people, he just had to hold back. He never kind of put himself out there. But when he was around his people who were like him, he was like just this Super Saiyan. And then he had this history that he never would know, just like Black people in America. This
Hmm.
amazing history that he'll never know, other than being told about it through like stories and having to hunt down stuff. And I just thought it was like really interesting and a good look, breakdown, because I never even thought about that. I like when someone said, "Why do you like Dragon Ball Z so much compared to like other things?" I couldn't even tell them. But then I watched that video and I was like,
Hmm.
that really makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, I haven't met any black person that's watched Dragon Ball Z that doesn't like Dragon Ball Z, and I think what you're talking about, like, especially that thing about like Goku having this history that he doesn't have access to and he doesn't know about. I think I've seen that same video. Like that really resonated with me too, and that's kind of one of the reasons I wrote the piece. But
But Piccolo is definitely black also.
yeah,
I don't see why people like don't understand that. He's the blackest character.
and he's got drip.
Right, it's dope. But yeah, I forgot what we were talking about. Back to the update. So in the update, what I ended up landing on, there was like hundreds of changes. I know this is super random, just to go back a little bit, but I got this thing pulled up to remind me to say this. Um,
Uh-huh.
there was like hundreds of small updates, because I found stuff along the way. But the core of it was like adding new bonus levels. People wanted, like, they really liked that really hard bonus level, but was really frustrated that they couldn't just like replay it. They had to go through the level to kind of replay it. So I was like, let me, give them what they want plus add some to it. So I made a couple more new music. I got to work with Dan again to do the new music for the new like endless mode. Because that's another thing people wanted, was this weird endless mode. And I was like, I don't know if endless mode would be fun, but I could do it in my own kind of way in which you can enjoy it for a little bit. And then, my take on the leaderboards, I wanted to do a mobile version, just overhaul the entire UI, because the UI was like the thing that, bugged me the most, because I'm very much a Persona 5 type of person. And I wanted to add so much more style to that UI, but those kind of UIs just take kind of years to really master, and like you have to do so many iterations of it. So I was really happy I got to do another iteration of it and clean up some of the graphics, and like we talked about the story and level updates. I had to fix that one achievement that everybody had an issue with, but I fixed it, so I don't want to hear nothing else about it. And making sure we made the game work with the Xbox accessibility controller, because I love
Oh,
watching people
sick.
use that thing, and making sure that like as many people like can play it.
Hmm.
Because I do the best I can, but I'm only one person. But I want to make sure I at least try to have that option in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you maybe want to talk just briefly about, what are the things that, especially the indie games that you're playing
Mhm.
right now?
Oh, I got a list. Hold on, let me open it up. So, I've been like catching up on indie games. So, After Party, super dope. And Inscription, like that game, like creeps me out, but I just love card games so much.
Yeah.
Especially like single player card games. I don't like the multiplayer stuff going down, especially with the I tried the Yu-Gi-Oh multiplayer one that just came out,
Mm.
and it just ain't for me, but because of the new type of card game Yu-Gi-Oh is. But I like the classic Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm really nostalgic of that. I play a little bit of Slime Heroes. I got an early preview of Samurai Zero from another Black creator. I've playing a lot of stuff. Cat Quest 2 is what I'm all into right now. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm just trying to make up ground for the 2 years I've been working on my game, to kind of play all these other things.
Yeah, listen, I'm taking a list. Who, we were kind of talking about like who else are there other people that you would recommend that we kind of reach out to that would be good to talk to?
Yeah. So my homie Justin Woodward, he He worked on the Jay and Silent Bob pixel game. That one's really fun. I played that over the summer. Anybody on that? We did this freshman class of
Oh
2021.
yeah, I think we I want to say we linked to that, didn't we?
We might have,
Yeah,
yeah.
most of those games are out now, so I would pretty much talk to anybody on that list because all those games are really fun to play.
Sick. I wanted before I want actually want to backtrack because I'm interested with the endless mode. One thing that you were pretty particular and distinguishing when we initially talked was that unlike in endless runner never yield, like each level you have deliberately placed all the objects in order to make a certain experience for each level. I'm curious with like an endless mode, what was that like? And you know yeah, can you just talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty it's a pretty different game. I
Yeah.
think people will notice that when they play it. They're either like it or they'll be like, oh yeah, Neil was right. This wasn't like something for the game. So I kind of put it in there as like, be like, hey, this is what y'all asked for. Here you go. To kind of see where it is. So I'm really particular about hand placing things in the level. I wasn't ever going to just make a level that instantly kept spawning. So I put it in my high school gym. I modeled my high school gym, and you're just running laps, and then the objects or obstacles spawn. Depending on where you are, you get you just count how many laps you ran and how long you survived that way. So it was more of like a survival runner, but endless mode just sounds cooler. Survival mode, yeah.
That's dope. I mean, I just really love like that personal connection that I think with this game you've incorporated into basically every aspect. Like I really, as a nonfiction writer, that's something that I really relate to. And I'm curious, now that this game is going to be out, it's the final update. I remember you mentioned that maybe there could be a Never Yield 2 in the future. What do you think you want to work on next? And feel free to be vague or whatever in that question.
No, I even put the answer to that question is an after credit screen. So I did a really super dope after credit screen just to see like how cool it will look. And like I sent it to somebody, I was like, what do you think? They was like, that's dope. I was like, well, it's going in. It's this really cool scene. You said this is coming out after the thing, but it puts out there what the next game would be, and the title and everything, and like
Oh
it's my
wow.
favorite. It's my favorite thing. So we're gonna. It really depends on the players at that point. Like I need these reviews. If you like what you saw in that end credit screen, you could probably just look it up right now. If the update's already out, just like go on YouTube and be like never yield ending, update, whatever. And see what that looks like. But I just need reviews and like people to play it and to know that this is what y'all want. And I'll make more of it eventually. I think I'm gonna make something else next, but you know,
You'll come
yeah,
back to it. It's something that you'll return to.
definitely.
Awesome. Well, one
Probably.
day
We'll see. We'll see.
in some form.
We'll see how y'all act. Y'all was like people giving me so much heat over these endless modes and this like achievement stuff. I'm waiting to see because people act real reckless online.
Are you hoping that people come crawling back and are like, "All right, you were correct. Endless mode mistake."
Kind of. Everybody wants to be a game dev until it's time to be a game dev. Like I made decisions in the first game. I still stand by, but I backed off of a lot of them because I was like, well, this is what people want, and I want them, I want to make this the most game, like the most beloved game, as far as a runner it can be. So they wanted to drive, so I gave them the control.
It's a classic case of people think they know what they want, but they
Right.
don't.
Now if the review scores go down after this update, I'm mad at everybody. Don't nobody talk to me. I'm blocking everybody.
Hilarious. Ben, do you have any other questions for Neil? Do you think that we haven't touched on yet?
No, I don't think so. Neil, are there any questions that we haven't asked you that you
You
want?
haven't asked me about the mobile version.
Oh yeah, we
I
have
didn't
it.
even realize there was a mobile
When
version.
when does that drop? What was it? You said you completely refurbished the UI. What was that like? Why mobile?
It was a pain. Like the number one advice I give to people trying to do something like this is not to go multi-platform. Don't ever do it. I'm never doing this again. It's there's literally like 8 or 9 versions of the game now.
Hmm.
And I have to update all of them across the board. And each of them, like, there can be different bugs for each of them. And then these 2 new ones, Apple and the Google Play Store. Um, you know, it's exactly the experience that you would get on every other version of it. So it was really hard to make sure that it ran really smoothly, and all that content was still there because the game was never built to be on mobile. But I'm also never going to put anything out that doesn't feel right. So that's what added about 2 months to this update, was just kind of making sure that the port felt right. And I got help from this awesome studio out of the UK who helped me with the leaderboards and doing this whole mobile port, and helping me fix a lot of these bugs because I could not have done it this quickly without them. They're called beta adjusters, and they're in the credits and they're on the page, so you could look them up. They're really cool people. I really hope I get to work with them again.
Awesome. And that's going to be coming out the same time that the update's coming out, or is it going to be a little bit later for the iOS, Android?
So yeah, that's the thing. I'm aiming for it to be out in February as well. But it just really depends on like Apple and Play Store's approval
Mm-hmm.
process.
Hmm.
I have no deals with Apple or Google Play, so I could talk all the crap about them. And how long how hard they make this whole process. And I was like, hey, can y'all help me out with X, Y, and Z? No reply. Like, getting a hold of anybody over there is freaking terrible. And I see why a lot of developers don't like going to mobile. But people ask for it. And I want to kind of give them another option. So, uh, my fault. We'll see if it happens again.
That makes sense. I mean, even with this podcast, like we host it on Apple, and in typical Apple fashion, the analytics, for instance, like literally the page doesn't work unless you're using Safari, and there's nobody to contact. You can hardly get any data, so we feel your pain in that regard.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to like just host it like on my like own website, to just be like, hey, if you want the mobile version, you got to download it here.
Mm.
Just so I wouldn't have
Yeah.
to go through them and then them take their cut and all that. It's just trash. Like, trying to get anything on mobile, and it's just the worst. But I hope people have fun with it, so it'd be like worth all the trouble. We'll kind of see. I'm aiming for the end of February sometime, but it's pretty much up to them at this point. Whenever they kind of approve it and like host it on their store, I'm gonna put it on my Twitter and announce it as soon as it's live. But yeah, I'm just kind of tired.
Yeah, I think that's all we got for you. Thanks for coming and talking to us. I really
No,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for like having me come back and like being able to like complain about all these things. I really do. If you're listening now and you've played the game, please go leave a review. Just like, even if it wasn't for you, just like let me know what parts of it that you didn't like. Just so that I can know for the next game that I make what people didn't like. Reviews are like way more important than I think people realize, because it really,
Hmm.
dictates, next steps. It might not address, the thing that you want right now, but, it helps for when I'm thinking about the next game or when I'm thinking about an update or whatnot. So, not even just for my game, for any game that you really enjoyed or last played, hey, just go leave a review. And, even if it's negative, try to say something nice so that the person who makes it doesn't feel like trash. Because these things are really hard.
And also people can know that you already like spent a lot of time, it sounds like, listening to feedback and trying to incorporate it into your game. So it's not going
Yeah, I
nowhere.
literally read almost everything that's out there about it,
Mm.
especially involving any kind of like real criticism that I could do anything about. The only thing I didn't want to change was any of like the core mechanics, like so the running, jumping, sliding, that was always going to stay, but everything else was kind of up
Yeah.
for grabs.
Great. Well, this season we're definitely trying to just have some more like informal conversations about like gaming news or like a game that really resonated with people. So Neil, this is an open invitation that it's like if you ever want to come back on the show and talk about a game that you love or an anime or whatever, we'd love to figure out something.
Real quick, then, since you opened the door,
Yeah, let's hear it.
Cyberpunk was one of the best games that came out that year. I know people had issues with it, but the whole system. But I think people were way too harsh on it and got like how the hype train builds up a game to get like really high. The hate train like drove that game into the ground, and people didn't realize how revolutionary the skill tree was, because you could feel however you feel about the game and the story and whatnot, but that skill tree was amazing. The art in that game was amazing, and the way people like downplayed it at the Game Awards was trash. And saying that it wasn't an RPG, it literally is the definition of an RPG. It's an action RPG, just like The Witcher was, just like the other games that was nominated was. It's not a traditional JRPG, sure, but that game was crazy good. And I feel like after they update it and patch it and do whatever tweaks, everybody's gonna hop on the hype train and act like they always supported it and all that. But I'm telling you right now, I always loved that game. I just didn't say anything about it because I didn't want my game and me to get caught in that crossfire. Don't nobody want that smoke.
Honestly, I feel like we're gonna have to bring you on for game hot takes on a regular basis. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm down because sometimes you just need somebody to be real with you.
And that was our conversation with Neil Jones, aka Aerial Knight, about all things Never Yield, the video game industry, cyberpunk, and more. As always, it's really fun talking to Neil about games in general, whether it's during the episodes or off air when we're done recording. He's just a really friendly and super knowledgeable about the industry. So yeah, it was really great to just kind of catch up with him again.
Yeah, and I think the thing that was cracking me up, but is also like good, is Neil is someone who I think really wants to make the best version of his game and is always kind of responding to feedback, and I think takes feedback, it seems like, pretty seriously in terms of revising the game. But he also, I don't know, has like almost an antagonistic view towards people who critique the game, where he's like, sure, I'll make the fixes that you want, but I think that you don't know necessarily like what you're really after. And I don't know, that cracked me up. That was really good.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that if I think about myself in terms of my own creative work and maybe how I engage with critique or like a reception of things, I don't think I'm as like overtly challenging or confident about like sticking up for my work as maybe somebody like Neil. And I think that that's probably true of a lot of like creatives. Like there's a lot of people who tend to kind of be a little bit more shy or like, yeah, just not as like confident, I would say. And I think something that's really refreshing about Neil is that he's somebody who takes feedback and is willing to rework his different projects, as we saw with like this huge update for Never Yield. But I mean, it's really refreshing to see somebody also kind of just call people on their bullshit and acknowledge like, hey, I actually am a really skilled at my craft, and I'm gonna make sure that you know it. Like that. There's something cool about that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's like, I feel like he, again, in some ways, like voicing the stuff that I like think to myself when I'm going through an edit, where it's like, when someone's like, oh, hey, can you try it this way? And I'm like, I mean, I can, but it's not going to be good. And when an edit does end up, being for the best of a piece, I'm like, fuck, like they were right. But, when they're like, actually, you have to go back to the original way that you had it because that was right, I'm like, hell yeah, fucking got him. So I don't know. I feel like I appreciate that he gives voice to that.
For sure. So yeah, that was just kind of a quick update on everything that's been happening with Neil Jones and Never Yield. As always, like I said at the top of the show, if you enjoy what you're listening to, then definitely give us some feedback. Send us an email at theoriginstorypod@gmail.com or at our Twitter account at @originstory_. And as always, make sure to leave reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Thank you, as always, to Ryan Hopper for the intro and outro music that you're listening to right now, and to Melody Hirsch for all of the design work for Origin Story. You can follow me at sad_radio_lad. Phil, where can they find you?
They could follow me at 3D Cisco on Twitter. And I guess one last thing that I'm thinking about it, we just started an Instagram account not too long ago. So if you are an Instagram person, we got a really pretty looking page over there. So definitely.
It's looking good.
Real good.
It's got a lot of content, got a little smiling faces. It looks good.
So, give it a follow. It's at originstory.show on Instagram. And with that, Ben, I think that's all we have for him today.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye.